The Chargers have been the one team. You got a Bosa, Justin Herbert, but we're waiting for the star.
Yeah.
It just happens to be the coach.
It used to be New York and Boston had the concentration of stars and coaches and championships.
It's L.A.
It's gravitated toward L.A.
Yeah, so let's start with this. Just like when a player enters the NFL, and he's a great rookie, a Sauce Gardner, a Jamar Chase, and we consider them top 4 or 5 in the NFL at their position, Jim Harbaugh enters the NFL again as a top 4 or 5 head coach. Andy Reid, McVay, Shanahan, Sean Payton, not many better. I mean, Andy Reid's the only one today, I would say, and probably McVay, absolutely better at this point, and by inches, not feet. And when you combine a top 5 or 6 coach with a top 5 or 6 quarterback talent, you win, and you win quickly. The best example is the Houston Texans. 1 year ago, they were a laughingstock in the league. They hit on a coach and a quarterback and ended up in the final 8 of 32 teams. In my opinion, you are a high-end playoff team if you end up in the final 8. That means you're either getting in by a bye, Niners, Ravens, or you win a playoff game. Green Bay ended up being a high-end playoff team. High-end, 8 of 32. Don't have to win that second game. So to me, the Chargers, year 2, get there absolutely. In year 1, probably. And this is very important. There were 2 things that made his job in San Francisco, where he got to a Super Bowl, a little difficult. He turned it around in 1 year. But the quarterback was Alex Smith, who's not as talented as Justin Herbert, and Trent Baalke was the GM with the Niners, an intense guy like Harbaugh. They got along initially, but not eventually. And Baalke won the battle. The owner chose Baalke, a disastrous decision. Jim went on to fame and success. Baalke hired Jim Tom Sula, arguably the biggest miss in the history of head coaching hires. Harbaugh was not having it. There's no GM for the Chargers this morning. By design. Jim will have say in personnel. The general manager will work with Jim. Jim will get final say. And that's the way it should be. There's weirdos out there, frankly, everywhere in America. They're anti-this and anti-that and anti-government, anti-vax. And there's an anti-Harbaugh crowd out there. Weirdos. What more can we show you? The greatest, most impressive thing he did is not Michigan, nor is it the Niners, nor will it be the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh took over Stanford, and they were 1-11. I had watched them play multiple times that year. They were an FCS team. My alma mater, Eastern Washington, probably would have beaten them. They were the worst Division I program. This was Harbaugh's only slow build. 4 years later, 12-1. Maybe you've heard of Stanford, academically rigorous. To give you a sense of how hard it is to win at Stanford, the greatest coach in many eyes in league history is Bill Walsh. He coached at Stanford. He went 34-24. Harbaugh took over Stanford at the lowest point in program history, and 4 years later was 12-1, and they were pushing USC all over the field. If you take out the COVID year, which was a wonky year for everybody, but especially college football, take it out. Jim Harbaugh has not had a sub-500 team in 15 years. He will win. He wins everywhere. He wins, period. If Jim Harbaugh is hired as your coach, you will win a bunch of games immediately. And let's be honest about the league. There's a lot of average coaches. Every year, 8 get fired. And there's a lot of average quarterbacks, mostly 16-17. And there's a lot of average GMs. Harbaugh's average at nothing. This morning, I could, with some certainty, eliminate half the league from the Super Bowl. The Chargers will not be in that group. To give you a sense of how close they are, they were 5-12 last year with a disastrous head coach. But if you dig even deeper, here's what's fascinating. 7 of their 12 losses were by a field goal or less. Easily the most in the NFL, with a disaster at head coach. 5-12, to 11-6 is not only realistic, he can't be worth a field goal a game. It almost feels probable. Denver went from 5-12 to 8-9 with 1,000 times more drama at quarterback, limitations because of what you pay the quarterback, a personnel guy that Sean Payton didn't hire in the same division, 5-12 to 8-9. The Chargers are going to be very good very quickly. Dean Spano said after the hire, Jim Harbaugh is football personified. I can think of no one better to lead the Chargers. The son of a coach, brother of a coach, father of a coach, who himself was coached by like Schembechler and Ditka for the past 2 decades. Today, Jim Harbaugh returns to the Chargers, this time as our coach. Who has it better than us? Actually, outside of Kansas City, maybe the Rams, nobody. Way to go, Chargers. Now, let's talk about Michigan, a great college football program, as good as they've ever been. What Michigan is going to do is very predictable. This is what happens in college sports, and I totally understand it, though I would try to push back on it. When a legend leaves, and Harbaugh's certainly a legend, a Michigan man and an all-time coach, universities do 2 things. They either upgrade somebody on the staff or they find somebody who had a connection to the legend. And that will work using the inertia the legend Saban Harbaugh created. It will work for about 1.5 years. And then you will see cracks. Because proximity to genius and proximity to greatness does not equal genius or greatness. How many Belichick assistants have hit? The answer is none. I could give you 25 examples of this. My childhood, John James to Jim Lambright. Lambright was considered the best defensive coordinator in college football. Steve Spurrier to Ron Zook, Tom Osborne to Frank Solich, Barry Switzer to Gary Gibbs. Great programs, a familiar face, and it looks like it works, and then it doesn't. And it doesn't because there's one Nick Saban, and as good as Kalen DeBoer is, and I thought that coaching hire was brilliant, rare, and took courage. Kalen DeBoer has no connection to Bama. That's the way to do it. And that dude can coach. But he won't be Saban. There are no more Nicks. And there are no more Jims. But I get why colleges do this. It's a no-win proposition. You lose a legend, and the market rarely has another one waiting to be hired. And it feels good. You can keep the staff. The fans have their natty. They feel pretty good. Everybody likes the assistant. The players like him. The recruits stay. I get it. But UCLA has been chasing John Wooden my entire life. And for 10 years, USC was chasing Pete Carroll. Finally, they went and got Lincoln Riley. No connection to Pete. Whether it works or not, I appreciated the courage to do that. What would I do? I would do the unpopular thing. I would hire somebody that makes people uncomfortable like Jim did. I'd hire Brian Kelly. Oh, I know you don't like him. And many don't like Jim Harbaugh. But yet, Brian Kelly wins. And wins everywhere, and wins instantly. And he rubs people the wrong way. Even today, after all his success, so does Harbaugh. Because we now live in a world with social media where people are just anti-things. Science, climate change, government, corporations, me, you, celebrity, everything. And despite the data you could hand them on Harbaugh, people to the very end called him overrated. People that cover the sport, that have sources, that have written best-selling books, that are reputable. Jim Harbaugh is an all-time coach. Brian Kelly's not there. He never got to a Super Bowl. He doesn't have NFL offers and doesn't have a natty. But he's the closest thing to Jim, but he's not going to get hired. And I get it. And a young man who deserves a chance at Michigan will, and I wish him the very best. But in my lifetime, the easy, the comfortable is almost never the perfect choice. But let's be honest. Who needs perfect at Michigan? Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.